Hello and welcome to CraftingCatz channel. We're going to do something a little different today. We're going to do some fall leaves and other various nature products to do some eco dyeing on different varieties of paper. So we're going to take you along on that journey with us. We're going to start outside and collect everything that we need, and then we'll come back in and show you how we do our eco dyeing for our junk journal pages. Of course, you can find links to all of our videos in the description below, along with links to our Etsy shop and our Facebook page. We have these beautiful fall ferns, so we're going to collect these. We want to make sure that they're still supple. It's okay if they're brown and somewhat dry, but you don't want them crunchy. You don't want them crumbling and falling apart. These are a beautiful red leaf. Darker colors of foliage will make darker patterns on your paper. So we're going to collect a bunch of these dark red leaves. And the fewer blemishes they have on them, the better. And again, you want to make sure that they are nice and supple, not crunchy. When you're gathering, you want to pay attention to shape just as much as you do to color. You want to consider the size of paper you're using when you're gathering your leaves. If you're just doing small pages, you want to have smaller leaves so that you get more variety on your page. Beautiful dark red color. We should get some good color transfer from these. Again, we're looking for leaves with fewer blemishes. These are a really great color and a good size for smaller pieces. If you've got smaller pieces of paper, or if you just want to contrast size as well as color on your page. And of course, if you're concerned about harming your tree or causing it pain, as my daughter is, you can simply collect the ones that have already fallen, though sometimes you'll have fewer choices of prime leaves if you do it that way. Okay, so these leaves are fully brown, but they're also still supple, not crunchy, so they're not going to crumble when we use them in our dyeing process. The stems are still green, so we'll have to be careful when we bend them that we don't end up punching holes in our paper. Some of these have multiple colors on them, which is nice. They're also a really great size, the larger ones and the smaller ones. That'll be a really pretty print if we can get it to come through true. This is an example of a leaf that is still supple on parts of it, but about to break up and be crunchy on the edges. So we can probably still use this one, but we might just put this off the edge of our paper. These are a flower head from a plantain, and we can use those as well. Not the banana variety of plantain. You want to make sure that they're completely browned out. We'll show you eco dyeing with green plants on another time. These are a nice bright yellow for contrast. And if they didn't fall off the stem so easily, we'd take the stem as well, because they're a nice bright red stem. That's a nice color contrast. We have no idea what this weed is, but it has some good color on it, so we're going to strip some of those leaves off. It's still flowering, so we don't want to take too many of them. because it will still need some of its leaf energy to make seed to reproduce. Looks like it's a milkweed of some kind, but its fall leaves are also bright red, and they're a nice pointy blade shape, so that'll be a nice contrast as well. So here we found a few tansy leaves that have turned colors. That one's about tri-colored right now. This is what they look like when they've fully fried. And this is halfway in between. So you can see that they're an interesting shape and a variety of colors. So we'll gather as many of these as we can find. Here's a different leaf shape, and they all seem to have blemishes on them, but I think it gives them character in this particular case, so I think we're going to use a bunch of these anyway. Want to collect some more of these, even though they're in slightly rough shape. They've got such good color and interesting lobed shape to them. Some cut birch trees, and it has a very thick bark, which Native Americans used to use to make canoes out of, but it peels off in layers, and between the layers has a nice salmon peach pink color to it. So we're going to see if we can get some of that color out of these with our eco prints. So this is a good example of a shrub that has excellent fall color, this bright pinkish red with little green tinges here and there, but its leaves aren't falling off of the branches when you touch them. So these are excellent for just taking the whole little branch, try not to damage the shrub too much, and then we'll be able to just lay the whole thing out on our page and get the print of the whole branch with all the leaves. Okay, so we're going to need some flat rocks to hold our paper down because paper floats. Anyone who's dropped a book in the bathtub knows this. So we're gonna find some nice flat rocks that have some good weight to them. That's a good choice. Here's a thinner one, but it's still weighty enough, I think. So we'll take this stack. I'm sure we'll find enough of them to use to hold our paper down. So we've got some of this nice, what we used to call graybeard moss, but is actually called Spanish moss. So we're going to pull some of that off of there. This makes the sweetest spider web in your pages when you use it for eco dyeing. So we'll grab a bunch of this stuff. So these are, I believe, an Oregon grape. They've got a beautiful fall color to them. Beautiful deep red. It's really hard to find unblemished leaves, but since we want the color so much, we're going to go ahead and accept the blemishes on these. So we've collected quite a variety of different nature products. You can see we have some brown pine boughs of different kinds that are still supple. Some flower head types. Don't know if we're going to use all of this stuff or not, but we've got our larger yellow leaves, some more pines, some other flowers, our beautiful ferns, different colors, lighter and darker. We've got some fresh flowers. Don't know if we're going to use those either. We have some fern type leaves and some lighter yellows and some medium browns, multicolored leaves, smaller leaves. We've got the bark pieces that we picked up. Then we've got some darker browns as well, some full brown and some reds. Some more of our fern pieces, some blade shapes, some smaller leaves, some very, very dark, probably black on our paper, some other reds, some smaller leaves, tiny leaves even, and other colors. We've got our stones, of course, which we'll show you how to use those. We've also picked up some lichens and moss. Okay, so these are the tools we're going to use. We need some different varieties of paper, although you can use just one variety if you prefer. We've got this nice heavyweight natural paper that has been bound into a book previously, and we're just recycling it. So we've got some smaller sheets and some larger sheets. We've got some book pages. These are non-glossy. They're really older book pages. You want them non-glossy. Anything glossy is not going to take your print as well. These are some old music sheets. They're a little bit glossy, but we're going to try them anyway because it'll look really nice if it works out. And this is probably your best bet. This is a watercolor paper, an art paper. This will take print really nicely. So we're going to do some of that too. You'll need a large cook pot. Please make sure it's stainless steel because we will be using vinegar with this. Use vinegar with a non-stick finished pan. You're going to end up with a chemical reaction that you don't want. You could also use a roaster pan, which I think we'll probably use this for the larger sheets, just because they'll fit better in there and we want them to lay nice and flat and be sunk all the way down in the water. We're going to need some string to tie our bundles together. We'll need some sticks because we're going to roll them and we want to roll them really tight, so we'll have to have something solid in the middle to roll them around. We'll need a pair of scissors just in case, and of course we're going to need some white vinegar. We'll need 1 cup of vinegar per gallon, so make sure that you get enough for your gallons of water, however many you're going to use. Alright, so we're going to start stacking, and we want to do about between 8 and 10 sheets per stack. These are thicker pages, so we might just do 5 or 6 per stack. So we're just going to take 1 of each kind of paper, and I'm going to put these folded down. Just flip those over. So we're just going to start laying some leaves on and throw in some little bits of this and that here and there. And you want to mix large and small, and it doesn't matter if they're right side up or upside down because you're going to have pages above and below. Again, these darker pieces are going to transfer more color to whatever we're doing. And you don't have to have all of your parts of your leaves on your sheet. You could do a large leaf and a couple of smaller ones and have some of the leaf edges off of your sheet. That's just fine. You want lots of variety on each page, and try to keep all of your leaves nice and flat when you press your next page on. You might have a little trouble with that one. We'll see how it goes. And we want to try not to poke any holes through our paper if we can manage. And let's do some of these on here. And we will just fast forward through the rest of our stacking of our pages. Okay, so we have our stacks. We've got 5 or 6 in this one, probably 7 or 8 in this one, and I think 7 in this one. So we're going to take our stick and press it nice and flat at the bottom. Very carefully lift our bottom page. And now, oh wait, I forgot. We want to tuck a leaf in here off the bottom of the page. Then put our stick on, so that we end up with our leaf print on the whole page, including the bottom edge, even though it's under the stick. I'm going to try and roll this straight as we can, although it's not super important. Your stick doesn't even have to totally be straight. You can have some knobs on it, and that's fine too. So then as we roll it up, we want to roll it pretty tight as we can make it happen. We can even unroll and re-roll if we need it to be tighter. We're going to tuck some more leaves in as we go, so that we get our leaf printed onto our page. It'll be on both this sheet and this sheet, which is the outside of the first one and the outside of the last one. Here. A little bit of moss here too. Get some moss in there. So then rolling nice and tight as we go here. Then we're going to take one of our pieces of string. Nice long one, we'll probably end up cutting it. You want to leave a little hanging because you got to tie it. Starting at the middle, you want to wrap all around up to the top and then back towards your middle. And then hold that string and then go around the bottom, getting all your pages down, back to your center. Grab my page there. Then you're going to tie it. Nice and tight. And make it a bow, because you're going to have to untie it later. The string, and there's our first bundle, wrapped nice and tight around a stick. It's okay if you've got these bits sticking out at the ends, that's fine. So that's our first bundle. And we'll go ahead and fast forward again through the rolling of our other stacks. So for our string, we are using a jute twine. You can use any white string if you prefer. Jute won't lose its color unless it is a dyed jute. This one's just a natural. Bundle. So we are going to go ahead and stack and roll the rest of our paper, all the different types that we showed you, and then we'll snap back to the next step. Okay, so we have our pages bundled, so we could use the smaller pan for these smaller ones, but since we have this nice big roaster and we can fit all of our sizes in here, we're going to go ahead and use this. So all of our different sizes will fit here. And we're going to put in enough water to cover them with about an inch over the top of them. And then we're going to add 1 cup of vinegar for every gallon of water we use. We can use hot water or cold water to start this. I like to start the process with a little hot water because I'm going to start this right away. You can use cold water, whichever you prefer. So we've got our water and our vinegar in, and the vinegar is acetic acid, so it helps to leach the color out of the leaves and other natural bits that we've used. But you can see that our bundles are floating, partly because they're paper and partly because they have sticks inside them. So this is where our stones come in. We're going to weight everything down with our rocks. Hopefully we can get them all to stay underwater. A larger flat stone here. That looks like it'll do the trick. So then we will set this into our roaster and put it on low heat. We want to bring it up to a boil. And then we want to cook it on a very low heat, as low as we can do with our roaster, for about an hour and a half. And then we will do the next step. Okay, so we have rinsed our bundles and we just put them in a pan of water, again with our stones on top, just clear, clean water, and then again drained them. And we've drained these for about 14 hours at this point. The longer you drain them, the less fragile your paper is going to be. When you go ahead and unroll them, you can unroll them within a few hours after, but again, the longer you wait, the better your color is going to be. You'll get more color bleeding if you wait longer, and you'll also, your paper won't be quite as fragile if it's had a little chance to dry, especially right on the edges, these edges where we're going to start on the unrolling. So let's go ahead and unroll this first one, and this is the first of the, or the smaller of the natural paper. So we're just going to take our string off, unwind it just the opposite of the way we put it on, and then we're very carefully going to lift our edge off and gently unroll it. Take our stick out, and then we'll just take our layers off one at a time, and our natural materials out as well. And we can see that we have some color from the darker leaves and some lighter impressions from the lighter colored stuff. A little bit of the spider webbing from our moss. Now, after these dry completely, the color impressions will be darker, more distinct. You can see some of the patterns here already. And we'll show you these again after they're all dried so you can see what our leaf prints look like. There's a nice leaf print off of that one. And this one also has the string prints on it, which I think is kind of cool. So let's look at this other paper. This is our book page paper. If I can untie the string. And you can see our leaves are all really faded, so that means that the color was transferred both to the water and to the paper. Once again, these, because they're printed, you won't be able to see the leaf impressions on them until they're fully dry. So we'll come back and look at those later to see how well our leaf prints transferred. Okay, so we have all of our papers unrolled, and you can see that these are the natural papers and they picked up the leaf patterns pretty well. And this paper, which was slightly glossy, didn't do quite as well, but we'll see how it comes out when it dries. I think it'll still look really nice. Our book pages didn't come out quite as colorful as we were hoping for, but again, we'll see how they turn out when they're all dried. And of course, as always, what we've always found is that our watercolor paper does a really great job of picking up all of the leaf impressions, and even, as you can see here on this edge, the string impressions. And each and every one of these pages will be printed both sides. Each side will be different and unique. So we'll come back after they're all dried and show you what they look like. But we also wanted to let you know that you can reuse a lot of the things that we use. We can reuse the sticks, of course, for rolling our pages. We can reuse our string after it's dried. It's still pretty damp right now, but we'll hang it up and let it dry. We can't reuse these really because they've already faded as much as they're going to, pretty much. But they're great for compost. Add them to your compost. They're already slightly acidified from our acetic acid, our vinegar, and they make great compost. Also, you can reuse your water. You can see that it's got a nice tint to it, so that will sort of tea dye your pages as well as leaching some of the color out of your leaves. You can add a little bit more vinegar each time that you reuse the water, and of course you'll have to add a little more water because some of it will evaporate. So that's why you would add more vinegar. You can also add a tea bag or two, or even a little bit of instant coffee to your water if you want to tea dye or coffee dye your pages at the same time that you are doing your eco printing or boiled pages or whatever you want to call them. Keep in mind, if you do that the acidity from the coffee will also leach some of the color out. It also may alter the colors that come out of your leaves. So a red leaf may end up being more brownish on your page when it's done if you add coffee or tea to your water. So those are things to keep in mind. We're going to go ahead and dry these pages, and we'll come back and show you what they look like after they're all dry. So here we are with our dried pages. We have the larger natural pages and also our watercolor pages. I'll just flip through these real quick. You can see the different leaf prints on them. They're rather subtle on some of these, a little more distinct on others. And we've got the watercolor paper, tends to take prints much more reliably. You can see that they've got good color, different colors. Instead of just tans and browns, you get the reds and even some of the yellows. We even get our string marks on the paper, which is nice. So those are our two larger types of paper. And then our smaller types, we have the music paper, which didn't take print as well as I wanted, but we did get a few really nice ones that are obviously leaves. Others just have some color, but it's not a nice sort of light distressed look. The same with these book pages. Again, we've got a few leaves that came off really nice, a couple that are more subtle, and all of them have a nice distressed look. And then our small natural paper, again, the leaf prints are subtle as far as edges and details, but they've got some nice color. So there you have all of our different types of paper. Now, as a bonus, we did a second run of each of these different kinds of papers and even added a few other things as well. In the same water, although we added a little more water, along with a little more vinegar because some of it evaporated. We also increased the heat and the length of time that we let them soak in the steeping water. So on the right is our first run and on the left is our second run. You can see the second run has less variety of color as far as the leaf prints went, although we did get a little more detailing on some of the leaves. But we also have a really nice sort of antique base color to the paper from reusing the same water over again. And the pages that were on the outside of our second roll ended up really dark. So that's the difference between a first run and second run of the same paper with the same materials in the same water. So let's look at our first run and second run of our watercolor paper. Again, you can see that we got really nice leaf prints, although we did not end up with quite as much color variation again. And we got good background color as far as a tea-dyed or coffee-dyed darker antique look to it. So that's first run and second run in the same water with the watercolor paper. And again, first run and second run with our music paper. Again, not quite as much leaf printing as we were hoping for, although we did get a few good ones. But this is that almost glossy paper. We did get a few that we really liked, and we like the background color, the distressed look that we got on these as well. Again, we didn't get as much of the reds or any of the yellows come through, but we did get a few nicer leaf prints. So that's first run and second run of that music paper. And our antique book pages ended up with a really nice distressed look. Again, the same subtle leaf prints on them. We did mostly ferns between these pages, and they didn't transfer very well at all, but again, it may just be this older type of book page paper. In the end, we ended up with a nice distressed look to the edges, which is really cool. So that's first run and second run of our book pages. And our small natural paper, we did get more distinct leaf prints on this with the second run. Although, again, we put the ferns between, and so there were some pages that didn't end up with much of anything printed on them, although we did get the antique look that came from distressing them just a little longer. And a couple of nice leaf prints. Now we did throw in another type of paper, which was surprisingly ended up being very satisfactory in the end, and we were so surprised because all it was a heavier weight copy paper. This is a 32-pound bond, so we were so impressed with how it turned out that we're going to do a bunch more just like it, and we were just using the last few scraps that we had as far as our leaf material, just trying to use it all up. But as you can see, we got beautiful color and really nice leaf impressions with lots of detail, and that beautiful distressed look that we liked as well. And this is just your regular office copy paper, just a heavier weight, the 32-pound bond. Really beautiful leaf impressions. We even got some of the light yellows that come through. It was really, really surprising, and pleasantly so. So we want to compare this to our best paper that we did for the first run, which was our watercolor paper. And as you can see, it's at least as good, if not even better. So we did one more thing with the water that we had left over, which had a very dark color to it. We just took some usual copy paper, the normal office 20-pound bond, and just put it in without any leaves or anything else, just sort of gently slid it in one sheet at a time. And again, we got some really nice distressing and some antique look to it, like a coffee dyed paper. And all we did was use the leftover water that we had, even after it was cold, left it soaking for about 35 minutes, and then drained it really well before we laid it out to dry. So there's a lot you can do with just one batch of water and a little bit of vinegar, and we ended up with this whole stack of really nice dyed paper. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.